Welcome to the Attack the Rack podcast. I am your host, Curtis Leslie, and you are tuning in to the #1 rated podcast on the planet. We have a great show today. We're going to be interviewing basketball coach Ryan Klingler. We're going to be talking about motion offense. If you want to see more on Ryan Klingler, I posted a couple links in the description to a couple Holland High School basketball games that he was a part of back in the mid-90s. I also posted a link to a couple pretty funny videos of Coach Klingler on the sidelines. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Attack the Rack podcast. If you wouldn't mind taking a second to subscribe to the Attack the Rack YouTube channel, give this podcast a like, click the notification bell so you'll be notified when we post more, and please also share it with a friend. Feel free to leave a comment or two as well. Welcome to the Attack the Rack podcast. As always, we're brought to you by Get to 2 Media. Today we have a very special guest here in the studio. His name is Ryan Klingler. He's a longtime high school basketball coach in West Michigan. Now he's currently an assistant coach at Hope College, which is a NCAA Div III school in West Michigan, where he coaches the JV team. Ryan, thanks so much for being here today.
Kurt, it is my pleasure to be here.
All right, before we get into this, I want to make sure I shout out our sponsor today. Our sponsor today is Leaves. Here in West Michigan, Leaves is a huge product right now. The colors are changing to a nice orange-red. Absolutely beautiful. There's no cost to Leaves. They provide joy and happiness, again, at no charge. Feeling down, you're feeling blue, go for a drive. Check out the Leaves. All right. So we have Ryan Klingler here. Ryan, again, thanks for being here. Today we're going to talk basketball, more specifically motion offense. Ryan is an expert in motion offense. He's coached it for years. Full disclosure, Ryan and I are good friends. I've coached with Ryan off and on for years. We both played at the same high school under the same legendary coach, Mark Worley. With back then, his assistant was also a legend who went on to be a head coach as well, Steve Windemaller. I'm quite a bit younger than Ryan, so we actually were not teammates, but we played for the same coach, played under the same system. Both of us. I'm assuming, Ryan, was that your introduction to the motion offense in high school? Or?
Yeah, I think I've always been intrigued by really the freedom to play basketball on the floor, which I think is an extension of the motion offense, which was a big component of Coach Worley and Coach Windemaller.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Ryan, after you played at Holland High School, what did you do? What did you do after high school?
Kurt, I had the opportunity, took a scholarship to go play football at Fair State. That didn't work out the way I planned it or wanted it to, but realized at that point basketball was probably my greater love or passion. Ended up playing another year over at Grand Rapids Community College, and then spent the next 3 years after that at Hope College, getting an education and being able to join and play in their basketball program.
All right, so you played, obviously you played college basketball, and then you went right into coaching after you graduated from Hope College?
Yeah, was blessed to have an opportunity to take a teaching job and a head varsity job at Fenville High School, right down the road from Holland and Hope College. And yeah, was able to start really, getting into my coaching philosophies and beliefs right after college, which I think was something that was doesn't always happen. And so be able to take kind of already how I felt about the game and really teach what I believe in was a perfect storm, kind of a perfect opportunity.
Now, was that your very first coaching experience? Your very first coaching job, getting a varsity job right straight out of college? Was that your first coaching job?
That was my first basketball job. I actually had been coaching middle school, ninth grade, JV, and maybe even varsity football.
Okay.
For the previous since I graduated high school, so I spent probably about 6 or 7 years coaching middle school, high school football before I was even done playing basketball in college, and so I was pretty. I've had some experience in the coaching world, but obviously the first varsity basketball position was right after playing and completing college.
Okay. All right. So let's get into a little bit of kind of we're mostly talking offense here. Your philosophy, as I know from coaching with you and also us just talking basketball over the years. Offensively, I know you traditionally like to run, a motion offense. Now that's a pretty broad term. There's certainly different ways about to go about it. What's kind of well, first of all, what do you like about motion offense?
Well, I think as a player, I wanted to kind of use my own IQ to play, whether it was to recognize a situation offensively and what should be done. So I think that kind of is a big component or base of my belief in the motion offense, to have just a lot of freedom. There are thousands of ways to coach, and different ideas and beliefs out there about how to run different offenses. I think I am a big component of trying to teach basketball, so you don't maybe have to do as much coaching on the floor when the time comes.
Yeah, and one thing I love about motion offense, Ryan, is the spacing involved. Now, there's different ways to space the floor when running a motion offense. What are some of the how do you like to space the floor? Has that changed over the years? Obviously we both played at a system in high school where it was a motion offense. It was a 3-out, 2-in motion, but it was almost positionless basketball because anyone could play any of the 5 spots. It was pass, go screen, have a block to wing, back screen. So that was like a 3-out, 2-in spacing. What kind of spacing do you like nowadays, and has that changed over the course of your career?
Yeah, I think I would probably say, if I had the optimum situation, I would probably just have a clue, or kids or players that had just the idea of what spacing was, just whether it was 15 feet, 12 to 15 feet apart from each other. It didn't matter if it was 4 out, 1 in, 3 out, 2 in, 5 out, just not to crowd and kind of run towards the basketball or the basket. I think each year as a coach, you got to look at and break down year to year what's going to be best for your kids, what they can handle, how they think, how high their IQ is on the basketball floor. because the more parameters you set, I think the more you get away from pure motion, right? But obviously, we know players at all levels sometimes need a little more parameters. So it's like really finding that balance of, you know, how specific, how many rules, how many parameters do I need to set with each group, and for my optimum level, that would be hardly any parameters. But you can move through the motion offense and set all sorts of different scenarios and decision making that can be kind of checked off, saying, hey, if this happens, this is you need to do this, or these are the spots we want to fill, or these are the positions we're going to fill. These are the spots on the floor. So I think it all depends. So I think it's a year-to-year case. I think that's kind of what we've always done, or what I've always kind of thought. And I think the most fun is when you don't have to set something down and write it down as a rule, and you just get to, like, the more they understand it, the players, I think the more freedom they deserve.
So you've talked a little bit about basketball IQ. Do you feel that it does take a certain level of IQ for players to be able to run a motion offense? Is that something would you say that's something that's one of the more challenging things to try to have your team run a motion offense, is a lack of IQ or putting in the time to kind of teach that IQ that is needed? Is that one of the more challenging things of trying to run a motion offense?
I think that's the challenging thing about teaching the motion offense. The better that I can do at teaching or coaching how to play, the more successful that offense is probably going to look, because you're going to have 5 players kind of on the same page. So I think the difficulty is kids all have different basketball IQs. They all see the game differently. So trying to figure out a way to improve and connect those 5 guys on the floor is why you probably don't see a lot of pure motion teams anymore.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with more of the Attack the Rack podcast with our special guest today, Coach Ryan Klingler, talking motion offense. And we're back. We're going to dive right back into our conversation here with basketball coach Ryan Klingler. We are talking motion offense. If you were going to play against, your next opponent, they run motion, how would you prepare your team to play against a motion style offense? How would you scout it?
I think you have an idea of what you want to do in different areas on the floor in terms of the screening. So I think that if we were going to play a big motion tag team, I would have a good idea of, hey, what are we switching? What are we not switching? What are we doing in different types of screens? Whether it was ball screens or down screens or cross screens. I think having those would be my focus. The idea of what are we really doing screening wise, defensively, is what we would focus on. And again, a lot of that can be handled through communication defensively by players. But I think one of the nice things about motion and why we continually try to run it and teach it is that it is hard to scout. So again, if I was on the other end, I would have spent more time talking about what are we doing on 3 different types of screens and how are we handling those situations, instead of obviously breaking down a play or what we're trying to do. So.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly hard to scout against. Certainly, if you're putting together your scouting report for a team, you're still, even though the team's running a motion offense, there's still tendencies of each individual player. Obviously, you still spend time talking about what this player's strengths are and what this player's strengths are, as well as you mentioned, now talking about how you're going to handle the different screening situations. If you would you talk a little bit more about that? Now back to an offensive standpoint here. What when you're running a motion offense, what are you doing off different screens, and what do you teach your kids to how to come off screens?
Yeah, no, I think that's you spend time, the opposite of teaching maybe a play, you're teaching again how to read a screen.
So you're reading what how the defender handles.
How the defender and I think the person guarding the screen handle it.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are also small points of like how to set up a screen, angles, changing your speed, changing your body angle, that can help improve those reads that you have to make as a guy getting the screen or guy setting the screen or the guy passing the ball off the screen. So I think you try to put kids in those situations where they can make those decisions, whether it's a single, one versus zero, whether it's 2 versus 0, whether it's 1 versus 1 or 2 versus 2, and then 3 versus 0, 3 versus 3. You try to build those situations up so they, just like in any situation, the more they practice it, hopefully the better that they can understand it, see it, and make the right decisions. Again, if you don't make the right decision, I mean, that's the good thing about a motion offense is it doesn't break down. It just moves into the next phase of the motion.
All right, we have Ryan Klingler here today in the studio. We are talking about motion offense. Ryan Klingler is a longtime high school basketball coach in West Michigan, currently on the staff at Hope College, an NCAA Division III school in West Michigan. Ryan, another thing that I know you are passionate about is transition offense and how it kind of flows into the motion.
Obviously, I think my time at Hope here the last 2 years, I've maybe adjusted some of my thoughts on transition. As you try to, I think at the college level, and maybe even at the high school level, you're trying to find better ways to maybe get some of your more skilled players, talented players, opportunities. But it's about, I think, for me, the number one thing is getting the ball out of bounds as quickly as possible, make or miss. I think that's something that can be taught about the person taking the ball inbounds and the guy receiving the ball and the people down the floor who can be a big part of that as well. I think you can build on the fact in transition, on makes or misses, what are you trying to accomplish? And I think my views have changed throughout the years, but I think even more so with some time here, obviously being an assistant, you get to hear a lot of different ideas. So on the misses right now, I'm really a big believer in filling lanes, and really filling this spaces on the floor that are going to open up advantages for you in offensive transition. So, meaning free throw line extended, wings, someone rim running, and then kind of filling the slots in the floor as the point guard or trail person as well. I think on makes, when you can kind of maybe guide the offense a little more, we've got some patterned reads of what we're looking to accomplish um, in those same spots almost, but they almost put us into some motion aspects as we're doing that. So that's probably been a little bit of a philosophy change over the last year and a half, 2 years. That it's sometimes you want to put your best players in more advantage situations, and you can do that when there's a made basket a little bit easier than there is with a miss. But in both instances, we want to get the ball down the floor as quickly as possible to kind of attack the offense or to attack the defense before they can get set up.
You know, and you mentioned too, like putting your more talented players in the best positions to help you out. Does that, when you're running a motion offense, it seems like it's a offense where anyone and everyone has the equal opportunity. Is that sometimes a little bit of a challenge when you're running a motion offense to, you obviously want to get your best player the most touches possible, but there's really not necessarily, when you're running a motion offense, there's not really a set way to necessarily do that.
No,
how do you kind of handle that?
Yeah, I think again, I think if you have five, your goal should be to have five really good players. So I think that a lot of times can beat the one dominant player. But I think
exactly, but like at the high school level, it's not always realistic. So
no,
certainly not.
But you can also, you can find situations or opportunities that each player might be successful at. So you might have to designate two people, and mainly their job is to screen. They still have opportunities to do some things, and they can still have opportunities to use screens, but the majority of their goal should be to go get other people open, which should hopefully help your maybe more skilled players. And I think so. I think that's one way to designate some roles as to, hey, we have a screener, cutter, and make sure that they kind of understand those roles, and that's where they're going to be most successful. And I think again, by moving into this more, maybe having some options in transition early on for your players that you want to get involved early makes it a little more advantageous because you're giving them the rock or the opportunity to make decisions early on in the game, which I think can help both them and their teammates.
All right, Ryan, we got one last question for you today before we let you go. We need to know your 5 favorite basketball players of all time. This does not mean 5 best. This means your 5 favorite players. They don't have to be NBA players. Any level, anywhere. Who are your 5 favorite basketball players?
Kurt, that is a tough and great question. Off the top of my head, my 5 favorite basketball players, in no particular order, probably Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson. I am going to go with Charles Barkley, Isaiah Thomas, and probably my favorite player growing up was Dennis Rodman. Just
loved his passion for the game, especially when he played with the early Bad Boys Detroit Pistons.
Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today. Love to have you back again, talk more basketball, talk some defensive stuff, maybe talk planning practices, all kinds of things we could talk about. So if you are up for it, my friend, we'd love to have you back.
Well, Kurt, anytime when you guys want to chat about basketball, you know that I am always interested.
All right. Thank you, Ryan Klingler, for being here today. Good luck this season, and we will see you back soon.
All right, get to 2, folks.
Please subscribe to the channel, like, comment, and share.